Ferrari is bringing upgrades. Mercedes is pushing harder than ever. But Red Bull might have just found something neither of them can stop. And the evidence is already on the table. 2 races. 2 completely different performances. Australia looked fast. China looked like a disaster. But here's the part nobody is connecting. The car didn't lose speed. It lost control. And that's the most dangerous problem in Formula 1. Because speed is difficult to find. Control can be fixed. And Red Bull is fixing it right now. Not with visible upgrades. Not with new parts. But with something far more powerful. Energy control. Half the performance of the car. And if they solve this before Suzuka, Ferrari and Mercedes won't just be behind. They'll be reacting to something they don't fully understand yet. And by the time they do, it might already be too late. Australia was not a coincidence. China was not a failure. They were both part of the same pattern. But almost nobody sees it yet. Because on the surface, Red Bull looks inconsistent. One weekend they fight through the field. The next, they struggle just to stay competitive. But that's not inconsistency. That's instability at the core of the car. And that is far more dangerous. Because an inconsistent car needs development. An unstable car is already fast. It just can't access that speed consistently. And we already saw proof of that. In Australia, the RB22 showed something unusual. Not just pace. Explosive pace. The kind of speed that appears suddenly. Overtakes that shouldn't happen. A fastest lap that didn't match the overall result. That's not a balanced car. That's a car operating in peaks. Short windows where everything aligns perfectly. And in those moments, it's one of the fastest on track. But those moments don't last. And that's exactly what Red Bull is trying to fix. Because right after showing that performance, the car lost power at the start. Dropped positions instantly. Struggled to deploy energy when it mattered most. That's not just a bad launch. That's a system breaking under pressure. But then China exposed something even more important. Because the team didn't just struggle. They tried to fix it. Set up changes. Balance adjustments. Different configurations. And nothing worked. No response from the car. And when a Formula 1 car stops responding to changes, that tells you everything. The limitation is not in the setup. It's built into the system. And suddenly, all the problems connect. The poor starts. The cooling failures. The lack of balance. They are not separate issues. They are symptoms of the same thing. A car designed to operate at the absolute limit. Too aggressive. Too optimized. Too dependent on perfect conditions. And this is where Red Bull made a very bold decision. They didn't build a safe car. They built a precise one. A car that only delivers performance when everything is perfectly synchronized. Energy deployment. Thermal control. Aerodynamics. All working together. And when that synchronization breaks, performance disappears instantly. But here's the part that changes everything. If they restore that synchronization, if they regain control over when that performance appears, this car doesn't just improve. It unlocks. Because the speed is already there. We've already seen it. And that means Red Bull is not chasing performance. They are chasing access to performance. And that is a much faster problem to solve. Because they don't need new parts. They don't need a new concept. They just need control. And if they find that control before Suzuka, then what looked like weakness in the first 2 races was never a weakness at all. It was the beginning of something much bigger. But here's where Ferrari and Mercedes should start to worry. Because this isn't just about Red Bull fixing a problem. It's about what happens after they fix it. And that's the part no one is ready for. Because right now, Red Bull is operating below its true potential. Not because the car is slow, but because it's not fully under control. Which means everything we've seen so far is not the final version of this car. It's an incomplete one. And that's dangerous. Because when an incomplete car is already showing flashes of top-level speed, you have to ask one question. What happens when it's complete? And this is where the gap could open instantly. Because Ferrari and Mercedes are developing in a traditional way. Step by step. Adding performance. Refining balance. Improving small areas. But Red Bull is not adding performance. They already have it. They are unlocking it. And that creates a completely different timeline. Because once they solve the core issue, they don't gain a small improvement. They gain access to everything at once. Full deployment. Stable balance. Consistent performance across an entire stint. And that's not a normal upgrade. That's a transformation. But here's the detail that makes this even more critical. Other teams cannot see it coming. Because there are no visual clues. No obvious changes. No new parts to analyze. Nothing for engineers to study on track. It's all happening internally. Energy maps. thermal behavior, system synchronization. The kind of changes that don't show up in photos, but completely change lap time. And that puts Ferrari and Mercedes in a very difficult position. Because you can't copy what you can't see. And by the time you feel it on track, you're already behind. But now everything comes down to Suzuka. Because this circuit will not hide anything. High-speed direction changes. Constant load through every corner. Continuous demand on energy systems. And very little margin for error. If the car is still unstable, Suzuka will expose it immediately. But if Red Bull has solved their control issues, then this is the perfect track to show it. Because Suzuka rewards precision. It rewards cars that can operate at the limit, lap after lap. And that is exactly what Red Bull is trying to achieve. Not just speed in short bursts, but speed that lasts. Speed that can be used every lap, every corner, every phase of the race. And if they achieve that here, then the advantage becomes real, immediate, and very difficult to close. Because while Ferrari and Mercedes continue developing visible upgrades, Red Bull will already be operating at a higher level. A level built on integration, on control, on understanding something deeper than just lap time. And once that understanding is complete, everything else becomes easier. Setup, strategy, race execution. It all improves. Because the foundation is finally stable. And that's when the real problem begins for everyone else. Because from that point on, Red Bull is no longer reacting. They are leading. And the rest of the grid is trying to catch something they don't fully understand yet. Which leads to one final question. If Red Bull unlocks their full performance in Suzuka, how do you stop a car that was never slow to begin with? And this is where everything comes together. Because there is one final layer to this story. One detail that turns Red Bull's situation from risky into potentially unstoppable. And it's something most people completely ignore. The start of the race. That moment when the lights go out. When everything is decided in seconds. Because right now, Red Bull has a problem there. A very specific one. When the clutch drops, the car doesn't always have power. Not partial power. No power. And that means positions lost instantly. But here's the twist. This is not just a weakness. It's a consequence. A consequence of how aggressively they are using energy. Because they are extracting everything. Pushing the battery to the limit. Operating closer to zero than any other team would dare. And that creates risk. But also, opportunity. Because if they fix this one moment, if they control how energy is delivered at the start, they remove the biggest visible flaw of the entire package. And they don't need a new car to do it. They don't need new parts. They just need control. And here's where it gets even more interesting. They are already working on it. Not just internally, but with the FIA. Looking for permission to adjust how energy behaves in that exact phase of the race. And if that gets approved, everything changes instantly. Better starts. Better positioning into the first corner. More control over the race from lap 1. And suddenly, all the instability we've been talking about becomes invisible. Because now, the car is not losing positions early. It's gaining them. And that shifts the entire race dynamic. But here's why this is so dangerous for Ferrari and Mercedes. They cannot prepare for this. Because this is not a visible upgrade. It's not something you can analyze in the paddock. It's not something you can copy between races. This is behavior. System behavior. Energy behavior. And that takes time to understand. Time they don't have. Because Suzuka is already here. Days away. And Red Bull is closer than ever to solving the one thing holding them back. Not speed. Not design. Control. And once that control is there, everything else falls into place. The aggressive packaging works. The extreme integration makes sense. The risky philosophy becomes an advantage. And that's when the shift happens. The moment where Red Bull stops looking unstable. And starts looking inevitable. Because we already saw the peak. We already know how fast this car can be. The only missing piece was making that performance repeatable. Lap after lap. Start after start. And if they achieve that in Japan, then this isn't just an upgrade story anymore. This is the moment the season changes direction. Because from that point on, Ferrari and Mercedes are no longer fighting Red Bull's current performance. They are chasing its full potential. And that is a much bigger problem. Because you can close a small gap. You can react to visible upgrades. But how do you catch something that was never fully revealed in the first place? And now, we reach the final piece. The part that explains why this isn't just an upgrade story. It's a timing advantage. Because everything Red Bull is doing right now is happening at the perfect moment. Early in the season. When every other team is still trying to understand their own car. Still collecting data. Still reacting to problems. But Red Bull is already past that phase. They already know where the issue is. They already know what needs to be fixed. Cooling, energy deployment, starts, all clearly identified after just 2 races. And that gives them something incredibly valuable. Clarity. Because while Ferrari and Mercedes are still asking questions, Red Bull is already applying answers. And that's where the gap begins. Not in raw speed. In understanding. Because Formula One is not just about building a fast car. It's about understanding how to use it. And right now, Red Bull is closer than anyone else to unlocking that understanding. But here's the part that makes this almost impossible to stop. Once they solve these issues, they don't need to change their concept. They don't need to redesign anything. Which means all their development from this point forward is pure performance gain, while other teams are still fixing fundamental problems. And that creates a separation. One team moving forward, the others still stabilizing.